Hello and welcome to episode 3 of building a farm advisory AI. But as with all the industries that I'm focused on, the offline, built, and physical, the farmer is usually running around at site. Yet they're not reading a whole wall of text. And it could be better if this were workflow or if this was something that could be analyzed and systematized. So far, it's still only a custom chat, right? Because this could be leaf blight, this could be rot. And if it is one of those, we want to store that information. If they responded that the pH was highly acidic, like a 5.6 or something, we want to store that somewhere in a database. That's harder with a wall of text than it is with what is called a structured output. And that's what we're going to do today. We are going to make this into a JSON as a response from Claude and then reformat it back into a format that the farmer can read, much like this one. So let's do that. Here we have discovered one more thing, which is if the farmer isn't giving something that's an agronomical question, the chat doesn't understand what it's supposed to answer. So a structured JSON output helps with both of those things. We still have the same prompt, advising it as an expert agronomist and forcing kind of the language variable here. And then we added deterministic guardrails with detecting the script and so on. So with that same concept, we'll first try and ask politely, right? So let's just do that. And let's see what it is responding with. It'll take a minute to probably respond. And there we have it. So we have a JSON output coming to the WhatsApp user. We certainly do not want that. Remember, we are going to reformat this in a way that the farmer can read, but it has only one key and it has still only one value, which is pretty silly because it's still a wall of text. It doesn't classify what the diagnosis is, and it doesn't classify the follow-up questions and so on. So it's working, but not quite, which is what happens when you just politely ask Claude. So let's go to the next step where we will now provide Claude with a new prompt that is called the few shot example. In this case, I'm going to just give a couple of examples, which is why it's called the few shot example. And here is our sample. We're going to have this kind of an output that we need, where there is a diagnosis, there are immediate actions, there are treatments, there are follow-up questions, right? So let's kind of build this into the prompt so that it can respond in a more structured manner. And it is still just putting it in a prompt, right? This is still not a way that deterministically checks if what we got is what we really want before we push it out to the farmer. So here's our prompt written in advance, and I'm going to copy all of this. And as you can see, it has an example input from the user. It has an example output and all of these fields. Now, one very important point here is when I do this, I am able to now log all the immediate actions. I'm able to log the primary suspects. I'm able to log the conditions and the treatment and the product. Now, imagine that going across multiple sites. You want all this information because it becomes really valuable in knowing whether the supervisor is over fertilizing or under fertilizing. So we are going to change this prompt and we are going to put this right there. So we're going to replace this. And now we have a brand new prompt. And in this prompt, we are clearly giving them lots of examples, a couple of examples. And here we keep the language check. We say all the things that we had to say before. But here we give an example input, example output number 1, and example input and example output number 2. So here is the pasted prompt. All right. So we are going to try this again by asking the same exact question and seeing what the JSON output is like now. And here we go. So we have a much better structure. where there is a follow-up question field. Now, it's still only one question because we have not asked it further questions. So let's see if giving further responses is going to add more keys. So I'm going to say the brown spots are on the leaves. I don't know any better about this, so I'm going to just say leaves, and they are like pinpricks. And are spreading. This cotton farmer is in a little bit of trouble. They do not have a halo around them, and the plants are 3 weeks old. I'm just guessing here. I just want it to give a response to us. I'm not sure about the irrigation. I'm a terrible cotton farmer. All right, let's see what it does. Right, perfect. So it already found like a diagnosis that the primary suspect is a Cercospora leaf spot, but there could be other suspects, and there are some immediate actions, there are some treatments, and there are some follow-up questions because I may have given answers that were contradictory. It's interesting that it forgot what the crop was, which is a problem for a future episode. But essentially, from what it knows, this could be a generic plant disease, and it still gave all the responses. Now, I do have a product name, I have how much to apply, and so on and so forth. And now I'm able to use this data in different ways. So the next step would be that we reformat this response back to a way that the farmer can read. And of course, we don't want to send like a JSON block to a farmer. And we now proceed to adding some functions that check and validate this JSON because we want the format to be valid for down processing and putting it into, say, a database. And so let's go ahead and answer one of the follow-up questions. So let me see if this is giving the right response that a farmer can read. There we have it. We have a more readable format, but we do not have the same wall of text behind the scenes. And the way we kind of check that is we check it on Vercel, which is in the logs. We are getting the raw JSON file, which is exactly what we want. And the farmer is getting this well-formatted message. We'll figure out how to make it more actionable through the WhatsApp API flow. It could be more actionable, there could be some CTAs and so on. But for this episode, we did get a structured JSON output. We got it to behave a little better than just asking the AI to give us a JSON output by giving a few short example in the prompt. And we also use some deterministic method like a JSON formatter and validator to make sure that the JSON we are getting is good, and then to convert it back into a response that the farmer can read. So what we want to do in the next episode is something that you might have seen on the screen, that it forgets what crop we're talking about, which is not a good thing at all. So it's a much bigger problem than it looks like because you can get wildly different diagnoses if the AI forgets what it's doing. We are going to look at how it is that Claude expects the history or the context to be given to it. So I'll see you in the next one and have a great day.